Hello, welcome to Art Life Video Blog Day 137. I'm TJ Ravenwolf of Ravenwolf Indian Arts.
I'm Jacob Wolf. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thank you, TJ, for having me here today.
Thank you for coming. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks. You do have a really lovely home, and you have some amazing work displayed.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. So, do you want to briefly tell us about yourself?
I'm from Alaska, and I fell in love with Portland, Oregon back in the 70s and the 80s, been coming back and forth, and decided to make it my home about 4 years ago, and that's about it. I'm usually a woodworker and a custom remodeler, but moving down here, I only had a backpack in a box, so I decided to transfer my creative outlets or what I do into something else. So I started painting. It's a little easier to walk around with paints and a brush than it is to carry around a bunch of tools.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So, was that the first time you'd ever tried painting?
About 3.5 years ago, yes. But I've always sketched. I've always done things in a creative way with anything I can get my hands on. So this is just another way of doing it. And I started off using oils, didn't like it, didn't like how long it took. I respect it, and then I started switching to acrylic, and then I gradually got into making my own paints, and I go around the country all over Oregon, and what you see here is the colors of Oregon. It takes a long time to harvest it all. It takes a long time to process it from raw material, and I use an acrylic polymer base to make it into paint. And
What kind of materials do you collect?
Sands, clays, all natural pigments. Sometimes I'll use fruits for making other exotic colors. Almost every color you see here is from the coastal mountains and the high desert. And if you go out to the ocean, you can get some blues and greens and other things, but I prefer this palette, so it speaks to me more.
Who are some of your inspirations?
My inspirations, Rick Bartow, probably Jesse Reno, Theodore Holt, and that's about it. It's a very small list.
Yeah? Are those people that you've recently met?
Yeah, within the last 4 years, all of them. And I consider Theodore Holt one of my best friends, and he's an amazing artist, and he doesn't follow any rules and does what he wants, and all three of them are abstract artists, and I'm surprised I'm not an abstract artist. I just love them. I love the way that they do things. I think I'm still a little nervous and not as courageous as they are.
Yeah,
and
they're a little uninhibited.
Yeah, they're very bold. But
are they all Portland artists?
Rick Bartow lives out in Newport. Theodore lives out past Camas, and Jesse Reno lives here in Portland. Has a studio right up the street, Studio Gallery, the New Measure Gallery on Burnside.
Right on.
Yeah, that's about it.
So, what are some of the projects that you've been involved in the last 4 years?
Oh, as far as projects, not many. I'm looking at working with some people on some murals, and it's all grant application stuff. So, waiting for all that to come into line. What I'd like to do is take these natural paints and pick a lot of the more unsightly buildings downtown and paint native motifs and designs from the local natives, just to say that we're here and share some of the natural colors of Oregon and beautify Oregon. Portland has over 1,000 murals in it, so there's no reason we couldn't have some native art up as well.
Right on.
But no real projects, just the Indigenous Experience Northwest 2013 I did with the help of a few other people 2 years ago, and we Flew in 4 Native American Music Award winners. We had 500 pounds of buffalo, 500 pounds of salmon. We fed the people. We rented out the whole Scottish Rite Center downtown. So we had the whole lounge, we had the whole ballroom and the auditorium. We flew in my heroes from around the country, and we flew in speakers, and we invited about 15 Native organizations from around Portland to set up a booth and say who they are and what they do. And I called it the Indigenous Experience because I wanted to share who we are and what we do in this community. And it left me a little bit in the hole, but the connections and the experience and the friendships that were made from that, and the collectors that I met there have basically, 4, 5, 6-fold from then, and that's what's been able to sustain me now.
Right.
And that's about it. Just working with different organizations, the Earth and Spirit Council, the Wisdom of the Elders, Red Lodge Transition Services, and a few others, Audubon Society, the Returning Arts Veterans Project. There's a small list, and it goes on of charities that I've worked with, and recently just did a show at the Concordia University for the Native Art exhibit, and that's about it.
Didn't you, you were telling me a little bit about the Portland Art Museum.
Oh, yes. Through my misadventures of making my own paints, I drew the attention of the people at the Native Art program at the Portland Art Museum, and they had me do a presentation. We called it From Ceremonial Harvest to the Canvas, and it's about my journey of learning how I collect these paints and make them into paint and then put them onto the canvas. And it was well received, and they said it was the best presentation they had because we had food, we had music, we had story, and they said usually people disappear to the wind as soon as the presentation's over, but we had set up a whole display of various states of the paints, and we had a lot of interaction afterwards for a good hour, and it was really exciting meeting all the different people, which introduced me a few other collectors, and I just feel very blessed. I call it Misadventures, but during that there's always a blessing. So
Always.
yeah, I call myself a kid with a crayon, and that's my attitude about everything. I don't take it too serious, but if you're not having fun, you're not enjoying yourself, and you can make money at it, I think you're doing something right. So.
Definitely. Do you have a general theme that you try to portray, or does it kind of vary?
There's a spiritual significance to all of it. The last series I just did with the Concordia University was to honor the feminine and also the two-spirited beings, the gay, lesbian, transgender beings in our culture. And basically I did a dozen prayer feathers, just one like this one behind us, and basically what that is here are the stripes from the American flag, and the way I sit with things is the American dream is a big illusion, it's a lie, and there was a lot of bloodshed and a lot of pain and suffering, and it's being cleaned up. This is a prayer feather here, and if you stick true to what you believe, and in this one there's the sun for the sun dancer, and basically this prayer is cleaning up that illusion, that lie. That's how I see things, and sometimes people fall in love with some of the story I try to share, and sometimes they don't. And it's been more the positive than the negative. I don't try to sound patriotic. It's just how I see things and what I believe, and I don't push that on anybody. I just express what comes inside, and I use what I call intertribal symbols. I've taken out the actual tribal identity. I'm Koyukon, Athabascan, and Muskogee Creek. I follow Lakota way in my life, but I don't use any of those tribal identities in my art, because I don't want to be narrowed down. I don't want to steal a part of a culture and misrepresent, and basically it would be called selling your culture, prostituting, and I don't feel comfortable with that.
So it's all original, not from...
Yeah, it feels right doing what I do, and so some people could call it pan-Indian. I don't even know what to call it. So it is what it is, and it isn't what it isn't. That's about it. I believe that if you are living in a way that really feeds your spirit and really gives back, and you can get by on it, I believe that you're doing something right, and I think that's what I'm meant to do here, and I love it. I don't know anything else. So
you mentioned the sun dancer, and you had said earlier that you were involved in that. How does your spiritual life tie into your art? Like, or actually, you can tell a little bit about your spiritual life too, if you want.
It's hard to explain. It's a way of life. We call it the Red Road, and it involves the Inipi ceremony, which is the sweat lodge, and then there's the Chanupa, the sacred pipe, and then we have vision quests, the hemblechas, and then the Sundance. It's not for everybody, and not everybody that walks on the Red Road participates as a pledge or a dancer. And what that is it's all a renewal ceremony, and how it ties into my art, it's all the same thing to me. From every year, like from now, I'm preparing for next year's dance, and going out and gathering these medicines, or these pigments and plant medicines that I use to keep me and others healthy. It's all a year-round misadventure. You know, the hunting, the gathering, the being out in nature. I have to be out in nature because the way humanity is today just drives me nuts. You know, I love humans, I love the world, I love creation, but I have issue with the way some things are, and I have to be out there to touch the earth, to allow it to touch me. And if I didn't have that, I'd probably go crazy. So it's all one. There is no real separation from the art, from ceremony, from walking down the road. It's all a prayer. It's all a way of being, and I don't know anything different. Anytime I try to live outside of that, I get into trouble. My best thinking gets me into trouble. So this is all I got. There's a hunter, there's a fisher, there's a gatherer, there's an artist, and I don't watch TV, I don't watch sports, I don't watch the news, I don't go to bars. Any of that kind of stuff will get me in trouble. So this keeps me sane, and this keeps me alive, and keeps me apart, and keeps me serving the community, and just like I said, it's all I got, and it's a way of life, and it's not for everybody, but I love it, and it takes care of me. So,
where are you currently showing, and how do people get a hold of you?
On my website, Ravenwolf Indian Art, the letters ndn.com, and or through Facebook. A lot of my sales and connections have been through Facebook. I just got a call today from a gallery. I was working with a gallery in Northwest for a while, but we had different ideals of business, and which is okay. You know, my ideal of business isn't about the gallery or the beer and wine. To me, it's more about the art and the artist, and that should be first. And we just have different ideals, and that's okay. It is what it is, and it isn't what it isn't, and we basically couldn't see eye to eye on those, and I parted ways. And that's okay too. I mean, there's no hard feelings. I still respect how he conducts himself and what he does, and I think we still support each other from afar.
For sure.
I did my show 2 years ago, and I did that because out of 120 galleries in the greater Portland area, there was only one gallery, which just recently shut down, that had Native art. So there's the People's Art Co-op downtown that has 1 or 2 Native artists, but there's nothing else around for Native art. There's a new gallery going to be popping up here soon, and so we're going to be meeting real quick. So the only way to get a hold of me right now is through the website or through Facebook, and that seems to be working. And if I do sign on with a gallery, I want to make sure that they get to know me, know my story, know my materials, know what things mean, so they can be responsible and respectful in selling the art. And I'm a member of IACA, which is Indian Arts and Crafts Association. So what that does is guarantees the collectors, the buyers, the sellers, and the market that they're getting real Native American art from a Native American person. And I believe I have a responsibility to other Native Americans of upholding to a certain standard. So I'm very picky on where I have the art. I'm not just going to go have it hang somewhere and have somebody not know what they're selling.
For sure.
And I've been on some pretty serious debates on Facebook about art price and about basically crafters opposed to career artists, opposed to people who are trying to say something or do something. There's a difference in all of it. And then there's, 1,000 so-called artists in Portland, and I believe out of 1,000 there might be 150 really exceptional, talented people that are doing something meaningful, not to dock the rest of them, but I think there's just an oversaturation, and it's really hard. I hope to be one of those 15% someday, but I'm just, like I said, a kid with a crayon struggling to get there, and I am starting to make a career of this, and it's all, when I walk on that road I told you about, that it's what is blessing me and opening doors, and the more I stay to it, the more it happens. And
so, ideally, where would you like to see yourself go and your art go in the future?
I'd like to work with internationally known artist Taji Kurtzman and a couple others. He's working on a huge public art exhibit. It's going to be in California, and he does sculpture, so I'd love to learn from him and some others and do murals and public art in other towns, making a statement more about healing and saying that we're here. We were here first and we're not going anywhere. And who I mean by we is us Native Americans, and maybe collaborate with some other artists from other cultures to show that not just the Native aspect, but show where America's at today. Where I was at in the past was just a person wanting to belong, a person wanting to be respected, and I was able to use my interest and skills to do custom remodels, and it drew attention, through my sketches and now through my art. So there you have the past, the present, and the future. I just want to do public art, make statements to say that we're here, but have some kind of theme of respect for healing and unity and coming together. There's a lot of wounded and trauma with our peoples throughout history, but in order to honor my ancestors and this red road, I have to be like my ancestors by practicing respect and forgiveness. Because when the first contact with the colonizers came, the natives respected these people, and they had their beliefs and their ways, and they accepted them how they were, and basically I have to uphold the traditions in that manner. So that is how, and what helps me get through a lot of the trauma, because there's plenty I could be resentful for, and there's plenty I could carry hatred and anger for, and I still struggle with it. And when you Sundance, you ask creation and creator to help you out with these things, and so you're given little tests throughout the year to help you build these things and towards these things, and that's what becomes blessings. So there you go. In the future, I would like to do public art with other artists and other cultures, and bring about some kind of healing and some kind of thing, not just, you know, a rebellious native thing, because there's that's needed too, but you know, there's already, you know, 10 really good, maybe 20 really good ones around the country, and so they got all that to themselves. I want to go in another direction. I'm not saying I'm any better or any more special. I'm just saying that is that's already there, and I want to try something else.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So the last thing that I wanted to talk about was the fourth Effin' Friday Gallery. It's the fourth Friday of every month, and I curate it for the artists that I interview. There's one coming up this Friday. We kind of discussed it. We won't be able to make it, which is totally understandable. And so you'll be invited to the next gallery, which is either going to be September 25th, or if I don't think I'm going to have enough artists, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to do one in September or October. So within the next 2 months, there will be another gallery on the fourth Friday that you'll be invited to.
Great.
But a little bit about it, there's always free booze and food for all the guests. We have a ton of artists, plus live music. We paint on the walls, and there's going to be face painting and all sorts of weird, crazy antics. So yeah, I'll keep in touch with you and let you know about
Appreciate that.
the future date.
That's a long ways off, and there's a lot of amazing artists that I know that you could probably sit down with, and they always like to get together and share ideas, and there's plenty of organizations here in Portland you could probably invite as well.
Definitely.
Networking.
Yeah.
I call it cross-pollination.
Been trying my hardest to network as much as I can.
Yeah.
So I did have a question. Do you notice if the natural pigments fade in like sunlight or over time more or less than like the paints that you get at the store?
Well, they are the way that they are from the earth, and there might be some fading, but in between layers, I will seal them. So I have to seal them, because if I don't, the next layer, it'll just blah. So in between all these layers, there's a sealer layer, and it just keeps going and going, and sometimes that grabs light, sometimes it makes things appear different from daylight to nighttime. So these just got sealed today, and I'll go ahead and add other layers like these feathers. There's sometimes 14, 15 different layers and details that go onto them.
Wow.
And I haven't really seen any fading, and I haven't had anybody complain. And I think it's because of right when I collect them, what I need is rainstorms to expose these colors, and then I go and harvest them and clean them up and sort them out and grind them down and process them. And I think it's when I mix it with the acrylic polymer is what kind of holds it in place, and then the sealer on top of it,
Right.
I think holds it all. Time will tell. So this is fairly new, and what a lot of people do is use oils, but I don't like the smells, and I don't like having to wait for things to dry. And I'm not an instant artist, but I like how the acrylic acts, and sometimes I'll use gel mediums to add more body. And with these, they're pretty durable. They're sand, clay, natural pigments, and I think that combination holds fast. I mean, they're really sturdy, and I haven't had any complaints, and time will tell. So
Right on.
we'll look look at them in 10 years and see how they're holding up.
For sure. Well, thank you for having me here. Do you have any last comments, questions, or concerns?
I'd like to see more of this kind of thing coming around, meeting all the artists, what you're doing. I want to commend you on it, and keep it up, keep doing it, and
Thanks, man.
hopefully it makes a difference. And I think doing this, you kind of bring the people together, getting into their studios, getting into their lives, and if it brings about exposure, then more power to it. Like Lemmy Kilmeister from Motorhead said, run up the flag and see who salutes it. So,
Right on. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank
It's
you very
been a
much.
real pleasure. Art Life Video Blog, everybody. TJ Ravenwolf, and I'm Jacob Wolf. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Have a great evening.